Happy Tuesday and long time no see. I was not able to make a video last week. I had so much going on, and if you followed my channel for the last few years, you might know that 2 years ago I really hurt my back, like really badly, slipped disc, bulging disc, whatever, and was like out for a couple weeks, really. I had to limp around for quite a few weeks. Well, it happened again, and it happened last week, which was my son's open house, our open house, had a million things going on. I was barely able to sleep, barely able to function, so filming a video just was not happening. Also, my sister who edits these videos, hi TT, she was traveling anyway, so it ended up working out. So I apologize that I was not here last week, but you know what? I think you guys understand. I think you get it. That's sometimes just the way it is. So I do the best I can. It is now Tuesday, October 7th, and I just wanted to share a little bit about what we have been up to. So last week, I've probably mentioned this before, but the way our HMH, since we're doing the new Into Reading curriculum this year, each module or unit is 3 weeks long, but we are doing it, we only need to complete 9 modules throughout the year. So we have an extra buffer week basically for review or for extra days if something is happening during the day, or if we have a half day and we can't get to things. So some lessons we were able to combine into 2, and we were kind of able to wrap up our 3-week first unit within those 3 weeks. So we essentially had a full week last week to review, which was really nice. Now, something that is very different from Foundations, our previous Phonics program, and HMH, their program, is this one moves a lot faster, right? It's just K through 2. So within the first unit, we are talking about open and closed syllables. They are learning closed syllable exceptions. So it was a good thing that we had 5 full days to just review phonics patterns. So I was going to today show you a little bit about what we did last week for some of those review games and what activities I liked to do. And then also kind of share what we're up to this week. So I'll be able to pop in a little bit tomorrow, a little bit today, a little bit on Friday. I'll pop in, throughout the week and just kind of let you know what we're up to. So first, let me pull up a little bit about what we did last week so I can share with you. Okay, so I shared a few videos ago that we are back to doing Haggerty first, so we continued our Haggerty. And then for phonics, what I did is I actually kept the visual drill that we've been doing. So I love that we do a visual drill every single day. So as I flash these letters, students are quickly saying the sounds as fast as they can. And I love that we practice this every day. And the more sounds we learn, they'll get added and reviewed in here in the slides. So I kept these. And then we also went over our heart words every day. So these were the first ones we learned: was, of, you, or, for, put, and push. So we reviewed these every single day last week. And then also, because we were doing open and closed syllables, and that was very new for students, these are just from IMSI. They were a freebie a long time ago. I can definitely find it and link it for you. But we would say, okay, I would ask them right away, is this closed? Yes. And then they would say, this is going to say the short sound. So bat, bat. But when I open it, bay, fell, feet, hill, high, tip, tie, melt, me, and so on. Then each day during the week, we basically had students review. We practiced CVC words in the last unit. So one game we would play is read in color. I love these. It's a super simple game that students just move a cube around, and as they land on the word, they have to decode it and color in the matching picture. And then I also have our CVC task cards that students did. So what I did here is I split students into 2 groups, and then I'd press the 8-minute timer. These friends would work on these friends were with a partner. When that timer was up, we would switch. So that was just one day last week. One of the other days last week, we started at the beginning, but this other day we practiced our closed syllable exceptions. So this is my closed syllable exception mini pack. I shared it in the last video, but I will link it again down below. So we just kind of went over what that is and how we just have to remember that eind, old, ost, ild, and olt are going to say their name. They're gonna have the long vowel sound. And then this game is also in that mini pack. So students would just roll the dice and they would practice reading that word. So these are all einds, old, ost, ild, olt, and then this was a mix of them. So students had to, again, just kind of practice this. So each day we practiced a little something different. So the other day it was CVC words. Today it is closed syllable exceptions. Let me find another day. And then just real quick, I'm pulling up the last 2 days. One of the days we practiced our heart words. Since again, this was a full review week, we had 5 days of real phonics practice and review. So again, same slides we started with. But this is from my editable sight word games. All you do at the front of the unit is type in the words that you want to practice. So ours were was, of, you, for, put, and push. And then they auto-populate into all of the games. And the games are seasonal. So this is like a fall roll, read, and color. So then they went off with a friend and they played this where they just roll a dice and they had to read and color in the word until the timer was up. And then of course, since we are really focusing on reading this early in the year, we did play another day of read and color, and this is a different game board. There's quite a few for each different skill. So here we just have some different CVC words for them to learn, to read, and to color. What I loved about this kind of built-in week is not only could we really like review everything and really, you know, drill it in a little bit deeper, but also it was a great time to teach some of these games that we're going to be playing all year long. So this was our first time playing read and color, spin, say, spell, the heart word game. All of these games they're going to play all year long with different skills. So this was a great opportunity to teach them how to play it, let them practice it themselves, and then as the year goes on, it just makes it that much easier. I'm already noticing in the back there, you can see we this week introduced the FLOSS rule. So I'm definitely going to go show you that over there. I'll show you what's on the back wall, and I'll also share a little bit about open house and how that went from last week. But I also wanted to quickly share what we did in writing last week. Since last week was a review week, the only things that we really were reviewing were phonics, reading, and writing. Math, we just continued on, so I'll explain that another day, just kind of where we're at there. And for reading, what we did is we took this opportunity to get to read some fun seasonal books. So I read Creepy Carrots a couple times. I read that, what is it, My Monster? I Need My Monster. And I did those using my book bunch unit right here. They have vocabulary words and different activities to go with it. So we read each book over 2 days and introduced the vocabulary, talked about the vocabulary, and then did an activity for each one. So loved that. For writing though, I mentioned, if you saw this video, I think it was 2 videos ago, where I talk about how I'm teaching writing in 1st grade. There's a lot to be desired with this program, and especially the first unit is really missing out on sentence structure and all of that. So what we did this week is we took some of our favorite lessons from this unit right here. This is my beginning of the year writing slides unit. And we were able to kind of dive deep with our students, and it was all based around sentence structure. The first lesson we did last week on Monday was identifying the parts of a complete sentence. And I like this because students really need to know that there's a naming part and a telling part. They need to hear what a complete sentence sounds like. They need to produce complete sentences before they can, or they need to produce them orally before they can even write them down. So we did that lesson first with students, and then we went into a few other sentence type lessons. Within that unit, there are I can write complete sentences with a period, with a question mark, and an exclamation mark. We took out the question mark and exclamation mark, and we just focused on ones with a period. So our second lesson was I can write complete sentences with a period, and just getting students used to starting with a capital letter we do, ending with a period. We have little visuals for each, so when we say the sentence out loud, if the sentence was I fed my dog, we say I fed my dog. So we have a little kinesthetic movement as we are, brainstorming these sentences, and it also reminds us to do our capital at the beginning and our period at the end. So after we've practiced doing all of this together, they go off and they complete this page right here, so I can see how well they can write complete sentences with a period. The last 2 lessons were really focusing on writing a detailed superstar sentence. So I like to start this off by doing the question words, who, what, where, when, why, and how. So we can ask those questions to give more details to our reader. This is what that lesson looks like as we kind of walk through. And then students have to take a simple sentence and turn it into a superstar sentence. And then lastly, the lesson that we did was writing 2 sentences about one topic. So some of those lessons kind of look like this right here. Good morning, happy Thursday. It is freezing outside. The first 2 days of the week this week were 80 degrees and beautiful. And then yesterday was really rainy, and today it is now 55, and it's not even going to reach 60. So it is it's wear a coat day. It was also Boston Bruins Day, so I got myself a little sweatshirt, and that also means I can wear leggings for the 2nd day in a row. Yesterday was Data Day, which is our data, however you say it. I've talked about this many times before, but it's just the day that we all get together as a team. So here's our team yesterday, and we went over the grade level data. We put all students in groups for SEL, math, and reading. And really excited to get all that started and going next week. So even though yesterday was a sub day for the kids, I was still here all day. So I was able to pop in and out. Students did great. But today I thought I would share a little bit about what we are up to this week. All right, so I know I shared earlier that last week was a big review week, but I did say in math, we just kept chugging along. This is our big unit where we are doing addition and subtraction within 10. So last week and the week before, we really focused on addition. We talk about a number bond, we talk about part, whole, how we put them together. And then when we go to subtraction, we also talk about how that number bond can show whole, part, and we can take it apart. So I really always want students to see that number bond right away, not as just two parts that make a whole, but just as the relationship between those numbers, because it makes it a lot easier when we go to subtraction too, especially when we're solving for like a missing add end. It helps them see how all of the parts and the whole all are connected. Which actually brings us to the lesson we're doing today. I won't dive into that, but today we're starting with fact families. But just to back up a little bit, for subtraction, we always kind of walk through all the different strategies that you can use for subtraction. So of course we do a lot of hands-on. We're using actual physical manipulatives, all within 10 at first, and then showing how we're actually removing some, taking it away. Like I said, all the while kind of filling in with a number bond. And then we also introduce students to counting on and counting back in order to solve. And then we also do a number line. And we do those similar strategies for addition as well. And then again, we're kind of throwing them at students, seeing what they can and cannot use, seeing what they like to use, and just kind of showing them each one. Now, I've also mentioned this before, but in math, we do, our first unit is numbers to 10, so just number sense, and then we do addition and subtraction within 10. And then I think we're actually going to do geometry next, and then we do numbers to 20, and then addition and subtraction within 20. So they will get much more practice with all of these strategies, and it will be a good time to remind them of what we previously learned. In kindergarten, they were already introduced to these strategies, and they are expected to master addition and subtraction within 5. So the jump to 10 isn't too big. They've already, like I said, most of them already experienced it. Most of them are already proficient in it. It's just giving them that practice and kind of building it up as we really ease back into the school year. Also, after introducing all the strategies for addition and subtraction and seeing the operation sign, the equal sign, and going into all of that, we always do a day for addition story problems and a day for subtraction story problems. And my favorite thing to do, I shared this last week, is to have students get together and I just give them a little index card. I think it's over there right now, but I give them a little index card with a problem. So we just did this a few days ago for subtraction. They have to solve the subtraction problem and then come up with a story problem that, makes sense for the equation. So if they have like 9 minus 7, what I'm looking for is, do they understand that, things are moving away, things are being eaten? Like there was a lot of, I have 9 cupcakes and my partner ate 7 of them. Or actually there were a lot of, I had 8 birds in a tree and then 5 of them flew away. So here's a couple pictures of those, but it's nice as I circulate to see that students are able to understand the subtraction problem and understand what a story problem might sound like for subtraction and then how it differs from addition. So just getting them to understand that language is also really important, which brings us to today. Again, we went through tons of different subtraction strategies, like I already mentioned earlier. We also played Quiz Quiz Trade quite a few times. My kids loved Quiz Quiz Trade. It's a favorite review game of mine. Let me grab my index card just so I can quickly share what that is with you. For Quiz Quiz Trade, all you need are a bunch of index cards. These ones have been used and abused. Like I said, we played it quite a few times. And these are also the same index cards I used when I gave students the equation for their story problem to create. And I shared that free sheet last week, so I'll share it again. It's this one right here. There's a couple different options for whatever type of story problem you want your students to work together and make. But with Quiz Quiz Trade, everybody gets a little card. And it has a problem. You can make them however you want. Mine are subtraction within 10, because that's what we're reviewing. And on the back little corner, you write the answer. So 7 minus 2 and 5. And let's pretend I'm 2 people here. This person, everybody gets a card and they stand up and spread around the room. And then you pair up with somebody. So you find somebody that's open, and this person will say, what's 7 minus 2? And they'll say 5. And then they check it. They say, okay, you're correct. You can see it there. What's 5 minus 1? This person will quiz this person. 4, check it. It's correct. So they quizzed each other, quiz, and now they trade cards. So once they trade cards, they now have a new problem, and they go and find somebody else around the room to quiz. I just put on a timer for like 4 minutes. I see if students can try to match up with everybody in the classroom before they, repeat somebody, if they even have time within 4 minutes. But it's just a Kagan structure that I learned a bajillion years ago when I taught in Vegas, and it is always a hit. And it's just a much more fun way of reviewing these facts than just like throwing them on the board or something. So kids love it. I love it. All right, on to today. Today we are doing fact families. So let me pull up the slides and I'll show you a little bit about what that's going to look like. Okay, first we just have a quick little engage. This is from our curriculum. It says use cubes to make number bonds for 5. Now we're gonna write 2 addition sentences and 2 subtraction sentences. So make and share a story for each addition and subtraction sentence. So this is kind of taking everything we've learned so far and putting it together as we get students engaged. And I always do this on the rug in a big circle with my students and kind of talk through it. So I will get out 5 cubes. I'll ask us to split it. Maybe we'll do 2 and 3. And then I will, up here in this empty space, we'll come up with the 2 addition sentences. 2 plus 3 equals 5. Flip flop it. 3 plus 2 equals 5. And then we'll do the same for subtraction. 5 minus 2 equals 3. 5 minus 3 equals 2. And then I'll just have students turn to a partner and try to come up with like a quick little story to not make that too long. So now we're going to learn how to take number bonds and make fact families. I didn't make these slides. This is one of my teammates. She calls them turnaround facts. I call them flip-flop facts. All the same thing. Basically knowing that we can switch up those add-ins, whatever property that is. I don't remember, commutative property, whichever one. And then we're gonna see how we can turn it into a fact family. So I'm just gonna, this is all explicit teaching. I'm showing them how to do this. Then my favorite way to practice this is actually with these red and yellow counters. So let me flip and I'll show you. The red and yellow counters are just so easy because you can pick a certain number. Let's say we start with 7, and then you just drop them and see how many red, how many yellow you have. And then I'm gonna put these in little plastic sheets, plastic protector sheets, and students will try to come up with the 4 different equations that they can for what they have. So if they have 6, 1, and 7, they will do 6 plus 1 equals 7, 1 plus 6 equals 7, so on and so forth. And again, I'm going to show students how to do this, and then I'm gonna put them in groups or partnerships probably and see how well they do. Fact families is always pretty tricky for my kids at first, and it requires a lot of practice. So that's what we are doing today. So we're gonna practice it and practice it and practice it. So after students do this with a partner, it looks like we come back to our rug, and then this is where I just ask for some student input. So we will use what we have here to make some fact families, and again, here and here. I don't know if we'll do all 3. I wanna see kind of how students are doing. And then they just have a little worksheet to do, and then they'll go to IXL for their independent work. And that will be our whole math block for today. We do have a full hour for math. It ends up being about 50 minutes with 5 minutes taken off either end for transition time. But that should work. It should be a filled up math block, which is gonna be good. And it'll give me lots of time to kind of walk around and see how students are doing. Typically, my students will struggle with the subtraction ones. They forget to start with the biggest number, or if they know one of the subtraction problems, they don't know the other one. That's typically where they get stuck. So that's what I'll be looking for today to see how I can reinforce that and reteach it as needed. In phonics, we have moved right onto the FLOSS rule, and I always teach this rule as a 1-1-1 rule, and I tell students it's a spelling rule. It's not a reading rule, because when they see that double sound at the end, they're not saying z. They love when I do that. So if I'm reading like buzz, I'm not saying z, buzz, and they get a big kick out of that. It's just to remember when we are writing and when we are spelling. So we have to remember that if a word is 1 syllable, has 1 short vowel sound, a, I, e, a, or try to remember them, and ends in one of these letters, F, L, S, or Z, then we will double that at the end. Students have gotten this pretty well. We've already done a lot of dictation with it this week. We've practiced reading words, no problem. There's a couple games. I actually have a FLOSS rule freebie. Some of the pages look like this right here. I will go ahead and link this down below for you. But we're gonna play Spin, Say, and Spell, which is one of the encoding games I mentioned that we practiced last week. But for this game, what I like about it is there are some pictures on there that are not floss rule words. So students have to think, in this one right here, there's can and there's dog along with the other floss rule words. So when they spin it, they have to ask themselves, wait, does this end in F, L, S, or Z? Am I doubling it or am I not? So just giving them a little more practice kind of with that, which is nice. And then in there, here's an example. I have somebody's right here. Let me just get their name out of it. But I have just some other practice sheets that they've been doing too. So for win, this is a read and match. So they had to read the word, bell, boss, bill, fizz, fuzz, cuff, cliff, and dress. And these little pictures were at the bottom that they had to cut out and match. Also for win, they did a little phonics find it. So this was just a review of some short vowel sounds. And then I think they had subtraction practice at the end. These were the win stations this was the independent win station this week. That was what they were practicing. So again, they're not having any trouble reading it. It's just gonna be if they can remember to spell it. So I do have it up on the back. I'll go show you my little sound wall there. Our sound wall is already getting nice and filled up. We have our short vowels, open and closed syllables, and our floss rule. And then I was just noticing, so I have these little soundboards that I'm putting in my students' writing folders, and it just helps them with all the different sounds we're going to learn this year, so that way they don't have to always look up at the wall, but they can access it in their writing folders when they need to. But it reminds me that next week, HMH also teaches all, ol, and ul along with that floss rule. So they kind of teach it as the double L, but how the vowel changes. So we'll be adding those cards up to this as well. And it was good that I saw this because it reminds me that I need to put these in the writing folder. So I'm going to do that today. I was also reminded that we do have F, L, S, and Z, the doubled sounds here, that I'm going to punch out for students and have them add to their magnet boards today, because we've been doing building, but this week I didn't have time to punch these out yet. So I haven't been doing building with these magnets. I've just been having them write it on their boards, which is fine because again, it's a spelling rule, so I want them to practice it. But I forgot that we have these, so I'm gonna punch these out too. Add this to my to-do pile. All right, what else are we up to? In writing, we are really at the brainstorming stage. Our new unit is all about our special and wonderful world. This was the unit that we actually started piloting last year. So we're finally at the writing and phonics and everything that I already did, which is nice because I have some of the slides from last year and I have some memory of like what we added and what we took away and things like that. So the first thing we did is brainstormed a bunch of things in our wonderful world that we love. I have an anchor chart. I can't show you them because they're all like local places and schools and things like that. But all different places up here in Massachusetts that students love and make the world special. And then they listened to What a Wonderful World, that song yesterday, and they drew images based on what they heard. Because today we're going to brainstorm 4 different things that make our world special. According to us, like we all have our own unique opinions about that. And even though this is not an opinion essay, they're going to write an informative essay. They're going to share their own special places. So today we're brainstorming 4 of them. And then next week we're going to take that and kind of turn it into an informative essay or a descriptive essay about our wonderful world. So I'll kind of save that for next week, so I'll be able to take out a student's writing folder and share what we've done. But the last thing I wanted to share in this video was I mentioned that we had open house last week. So I thought I would just share a little bit about what my slides look like and how I kind of do that here at my school. All right, so for open house, we had it last Tuesday. And it was nice because I actually got to go to my boys' 2 open houses first and kind of see what they do. So I did get some fun little popcorn and I got some little Sour Patch Kids and waters for everybody, just in case they wanted a little snack. And I actually had my mom drop them off during the school day, which was not so smart because I started putting them out at the end of the day and all my kids thought it was for them. So I did tell them that their parents could take one home for them. So that also helped me get rid of some of them at the end when parents don't want to take home like snacks and treats or something. I'm like, nope, I told your kids, please take them home, take them home. So I put those out. And then what we do at our school is basically kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. They each have an hour and it's on the same night. So ours was from 6 to 7. It was the middle slot. And then it's only about 35 to 40 minutes, I would say, is the presentation. And then we have a smaller parking lot. So we try to get everybody out in a little 15-minute transition time so the next grade level's parents can kind of come on in. During our open house, we don't do like a full school type of thing where like everybody sees the principal first. Specialists aren't here, or I should say they're usually spread out, but like they're not doing any sort of presentation. So basically all the kids' parents come down to their own kids' classroom and they get a sneak peek into their room for like the first time all year. So we had been in school at that point about 24-ish days, roughly. Something around there. And so I do send a lot of pictures home on Seesaw so they could see the classroom, but it's nice because they can actually like see where their kids sit, see the books and everything, and see what the classroom looks like. And this is my time to explain just my philosophies, my management style, and then also really give them a look into their child's day. So I'll pull up the slides. There are a lot of pictures of kids, so I'm gonna have TT, my sister, blur all their faces out, but I really want you to see kind of what the presentation looks like. All right, so we have welcome to our classroom, school year 2025-2026. And then I always start with just a little meet me. This is me getting my master's from Boston University. This is my first classroom back in Las Vegas, so I give them a little insight about how many years I've been teaching, when I started teaching, and where I started teaching. I actually don't even remember if I told them. That's the other thing. When I start talking in front of parents, I just kind of go blank. So I feel like I didn't even give them like the background of me teaching. I don't know. But anyway, I did mention that I subbed here at my current school before I took a job here, and I was so excited. I do have my family photo here, my 2 boys. The next slide I have is friendly faces. These are the 4 people that their children are probably going to see a lot of this year. As I mentioned, I am in a heavily supported classroom. So I do have an aide who's in here all day with me. We have a special education teacher who works with the whole grade 1 team, but is in my room a lot for push-in. And then the 2 school adjustment counselors are also in and out and are seen pretty often by children. So these are probably the names that their students would say the most. So if they didn't know them already, they can see a friendly face and get to see who their kid is talking about. And then I always share a little bit about me in my free time. So I explain that I used to do conferences for a while I was home in person. Now I stick to virtual ones. This, by the way, is my Educator Summit conference that I am doing this winter. So I'm going to link that down below. Use the code Susan if you would like to sign up. It is some great PD. Just a little reminder here. I always explain that I am a YouTuber. By this point, many of my students here already know I have a YouTube channel, so I like to lead with that. I explain kind of why I made the channel, and I also explain that, I take their children's privacy very seriously. I never post pictures of my kids or videos of my kids. I don't film during the school day, so it's mostly just me sharing my tips, ideas, and everything, as you already know because you're watching this video. And then I say, other than teaching, because I know I do a lot of that, I also like to go on cruises and on vacations with my family. And then I always start off this is just my wish. My wish for this year is that your child feels loved, supported, and seen, learns to persevere through challenges, builds confidence and can identify their strengths and weaknesses, is a kind, supportive peer, and learns a lot at their own pace. And this is just my overarching kind of wish for every student that enters my classroom every year. All right, next we go into our schedule. So I go over the specials real quick. I remind them to please wear sneakers on gym day, which is every Friday. And then here is our schedule. So I explain that this is what our schedule looks like. And then basically the rest of the slideshow, or most of the slideshow, is me kind of walking through what that might look like. So when my kids come in the morning, we have a nice slow start. We have unstructured time. They get to play together. They get to argue together. And we get to kind of have a nice slow start. I like unstructured time because it lets me see how the kids really interact. And then I also talk a little bit about our morning meeting and the 4 parts of morning meeting that I love. Here's a quick little slide showing the 4 parts of my morning meeting. These are from my morning meeting slides. I'll also link these down below. They've been a huge hit this year. Then I explain how we go right into phonics. I talk just a little bit about the science of reading and how teaching students to read is my absolute favorite thing in the world to do. How I've spent tons of years researching and just finding all the best practices, and it truly is my favorite part about teaching first grade. I explained that we have a multisensory approach to learning, the explicit systematic instruction, sound symbol connections. I have some friends here showing different parts of our day. I explained that we have our little Haggerty hedgehog and that students love that. For reading, I explained that we do have a new curriculum, HMH into reading. I did explain that I was the pilot teacher last year, so I already have gone through this program, which gives me like a little step ahead of the game in knowing what to add. It has a heavy focus on building knowledge and vocabulary. We have literacy centers, and then we also do a lot of writing in connection to our reading. And then I explained that we have our snack, lunch, and recess. So this is just how it works at our school. We do have a morning snack. It's about 15 minutes. I say that, it is pretty quick, so if they can just have a small nutritious snack. Lunch, we still have free lunch every day. It's about 20 minutes. And then students do have 2 15-minute recesses and to dress accordingly because we go out rain or shine. Actually, we don't go in the rain, that's not true. We go out snow or shine, so bring their snow clothes in the winter. Back to math after we come in from snack and recess. Math, obviously I love. We do a lot of hands-on instruction in first grade. We do a lot of partner activities and games. And our big focus throughout the year is going to be place value and addition and subtraction within 20, really getting those math facts ready to go. Then I explain what WIN is. I have a whole video on WIN. I will link it down below. I just tell parents this is the time where every child gets exactly what they need. So some students are, going to be pulled for RTI, for reading, math, or social skills. They might get enrichment, they might get differentiated instruction, and it's a full 45 minutes. It's one of my favorite parts of the day. After WIN, there was writing. We did actually flip-flop this, so now it's reading, but at the time it was writing. I talk a little bit about invented spelling on the next slide, and I just say how there is so much growth that happens in first grade because of all the phonics patterns that we teach, and that we really have a focus on speaking in complete sentences. And then the 3 type of genres that we are writing are narrative, opinion, and informative. And also there's a focus on grammar. And then this is where we have the inventive spelling letter. And I actually had a copy of this on everybody's desk, and we just read it aloud. And I just explained that please, encourage your children to write. Do not be alarmed if you see this type of spelling when you come home. I promise I am teaching them. And then I actually have everybody turn around and we look at the sound wall in the back. And I explain how until a sound is up on that sound wall, I do not expect students to be able to spell it correctly because I have not taught it to them yet. But once a sound is on that wall, then I'm expecting that they can spell it correctly. So again, just giving them some background and insight into what writing and phonics and reading and all that's going to look like in my room. And lastly, our last part of the day is social studies and science. I always share how sad I am that we only have about 25 minutes for this, but that's just the way it is. So to get the biggest bang for our buck, we switch between social studies and science topics. We talk a lot about community, citizenship, light and sound, and we do tons of hands-on experiments and in-school projects. So that basically walks parents through the day so they can see what types of activities kids are doing. And then I just have a little slide here on social emotional learning and what that looks like in first grade. In first grade, we're really just trying to help them identify emotions so we can help, and then teaching them strategies to assist them with emotions. I also, again, explain that most conflict arises during unstructured play. There's not that much conflict going on during our busy day, and the games I play in class are very highly structured, but that morning time, recess time, that can be when challenges occur, and it's a good time for them to kind of work through that and practice their skills. Then some quick notes about arrival and dismissal. I explain that if they are not already, please sign up for Seesaw. It is where I share quick announcements and lots of pictures from the week. And then I also explain that as the year goes on, they'll see more and more activities in there, and they'll hear their children explain, both video-wise and audio, how to, they'll explain their learning. They'll read things, they'll explain how they solved things. So it's a fun place for parents to keep up with what we're doing. Also for communication, they have a daily folder. I send a big, long weekly email with tons of tips about what we're learning in each subject, as well as questions for everybody to ask their kids. And I explain in that email that the questions I'm asking, every child should be able to answer. And it kind of will give them a baseline on where their student is falling. So if they can't answer the questions that I'm asking, they might be struggling a little bit with that skill. And if they can do it easily, then they are, ahead of the game. So it gives them a little insight too before we have to meet for conferences. And then I don't do too many phone calls, but sometimes I explain, it's not always a bad thing I have to call, but sometimes I just need more time to explain it, or it might be nuanced and I don't want to write it in an email. So I'll ask to schedule a quick call. And then I talk about my classroom management style. So this is where I focus on intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. I have a whole video on this. Here's the thumbnail of the video. And I really talk about positive reinforcement and how it's key in our classroom, and how I want my students to really work on their personal growth and responsibility and see how their actions can affect themselves and others. I explain how token systems do often fade quickly. I do save them for subs in special circumstances, especially towards the end of the year, but we really heavily focus on logical consequences. And then I just give them this example that I've taught to my kids many times so they can understand kind of what that looks like in my classroom. Our homework policy is that we do not have homework, so I just give them a couple ideas for things for them to do. Report cards in conferences, I explain. We use a standards-based report card. We have 2 conferences per year and 2 report cards per year. And then this is like a grade level wide. So for first grade asks that everybody works on self-advocacy and self-management for the bathroom. Please keep toys, technology at home. Extra clothes, if your child needs them, please have them. We just keep them in their buckets. Spill-proof water bottle. We say Stanleys are so popular, but they spill everywhere. And then this is always a big one in first grade. Can your child tie their shoes? If not, this is the perfect time to learn. And then this next slide is more individualized to my classroom. So in our classroom specifically, we're working on impulsivity, so raising our hands before we want to talk out, trying our best work and not just rushing through to get to the next thing, and then independence. I had told them I think this class more than any other class I've ever had, after explaining an assignment, modeling it, passing it out, and knowing that 90% of students can do it, I think their most popular phrase is, I need help, and then they all start saying it. And they actually don't need help. And I told their parents, I was like, believe me, if they need help, I am here to help them. But most of the time, I'm just like, no, you don't. Think about what I just said. So we're really working on this one right here. Birthdays, we actually haven't had a birthday yet in our classroom, but I just give a little update about what they can get. They get a little birthday hat from me, a little cup, and a birthday book from classmates. And then unfortunately they can't send food, and please only send invites if all kids are invited. And then some other ways to join us in our classroom. We have field trips, holiday parties. In March, we always do mystery readers. And then we do have a fun run coming up next week. So I asked them to keep the fun run shirt because we like to wear that on field trips just to make it easy. Scholastic Book Club, I just share how, back in the olden days, we would send in a check. Now everything is online. So I'll send home the flyers. They can feel free to order books online and I'll ship it right to their house, or it gets brought here and we send it home. Easy peasy. Just a couple of reminders, sign up for fall conferences were sent out last Friday. The fun run is on October 16th. And then I always end, this is why I had popcorn over there, but popcorn is prepared in the same pot, in the same heat, in the same oil, and yet the kernels do not pop at the same time. Don't compare your child to others, their turn to pop is coming. And just explaining that again, they are in first grade. They are all growing rapidly. They're all growing at different paces, that they don't need to worry about what everybody else is learning. I think I said, if your child can read at a 3rd grade level, that's wonderful, but are they a kind friend? Are they a good first grade student? Are they respectful? These are all the things, that we're looking for as teachers and as, community members, and we just want to remember this. So I thought it was good to keep in mind. And then any questions, and we had a little note for them to leave for their kid. So that walks through the entire thing. I want to say it took about 30 to 35 minutes, roughly, 33 and a half maybe. Mostly everybody took some popcorn and some Sour Patch Kids, which was good. Most people took a bottle of water, and it was all said and done. I think like whenever I present, especially in front of, adults, I do kind of black out. So I don't know how it went. My back was also hurting pretty bad. I think it went well. I think it was well received. I didn't hear any complaints. But that's what open house kind of looks like at our school. So we did that, and then actually in 2 weeks from today, we already have parent-teacher conferences. So I'll explain more about that when that kind of comes up. And then our first report cards don't go out till January. So it's like we start school for a couple weeks, parents come in for open house, roughly a month, 3 weeks later, we get to meet them in person, have conferences. Then about 2 months later, they get report cards. We try to trickle it and spread it out throughout the year. So we're always touching base with everybody. And of course, I am very available by email, Seesaw. I'm a pretty responsive teacher, I think, in terms of that stuff. So I do try to keep parents updated with anything that comes up. But that's what it looks like in case you were wondering. So this video was kind of a hodgepodge of everything. A little bit about what we did last week, a little bit about what I'm doing this week, and then a little open house too. But my back is feeling better, thank goodness. So I will definitely be back next week to share more. I'll share about writing. And if there's anything else you're wanting to know, let me know down in the comments so I can answer that for you. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up so I know. Make sure you are subscribed to my channel and click that bell. That way you're notified of every new video. See you in the next one. Bye.